Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joyce Lingerie. I'm here with Toni Pinto. You can see her on my screen here, and Toni is our guest, and we'll be talking. Hi. She's from Pinto Portraits out of Issaquah, and she'll be talking about the importance of portraits and how she gets started in the business and how that relates to me and other singer-songwriters and musicians out there that would like to get a professional portrait. So with that, I would like to thank my sponsor, Luscious Moss Studio, owned and operated by Chad Cruz out of Edgewood, Washington. He's set up primarily for guitars and lead guitarists, but he's also does other kinds of production. So if you have some needs for his studio, do give him a call. He's on Facebook. Either put in Luscious Moss or Chad Quist, and he has a very collaborative, creative environment set up to do his work. So with that, I'm going to talk to Toni. I've been waiting to talk to her for a while. So Toni, can you tell us how you ever got into taking pictures of musicians, and how did that all come about?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, first of all, I've been a photographer for like 30 plus years. I'm old school, but originally can I just give you a little backstory on how, because it kind of goes hand in hand, how I started and how I started photographing musicians. But so I originally I got into photography when I took some gap years between high school and college and had a wanderlust soul and took a one-way ticket to Europe. And at the time, and then found a job. And at the time, I was around a lot of other travelers, and the way we told our stories was through slide photos, right? We'd get together in the evening and project slides. So that's kind of when I started. Photography is a little bit of a travel photography, but then when I went back to school, I was very interested in graphic design and took a elective in photography, and then that was it for me. I just stayed all in on photography and a little bit of video, but usually photographers fall into one or two camps of what interests them, like either landscapes and still lifes or people. And from the very beginning, I've always was interested in photographing people. Like if I didn't have a person, I didn't have a subject. So I started photographing my friends and roommates. And then when I was in college, I was working as a photojournalist for a small, weekly newspaper. And then there was this one guy that kept saying, "Hey, you want to come see come hear some bands after work or whatever?" And I was like, no, I'm too busy. I was studying, working. And then one day he's like, "Well, I have a band and we need photos." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." So that's kind of what got me into it. And that actually became my first husband. But anyway, that's another story. So so started photographing bands that way, and I loved it, and kind of started in live performances, but then went to more of what suited my style was more of photographing them in more expressive ways outside of performance on stage. Like we'd meet either at that time I didn't have a studio, so it was mostly outdoors or things like that. So anyway, again, like I said, I always enjoyed photographing people, but my first job after college was in a commercial studio in Seattle doing product but I was even hired there as the people photographer, someone that would work with people and product. And then for a while after that, I freelanced for many years, and then did weddings for about 10 years along with other things. And I've had my own portrait studio. It's going to be 10 years in 2023 in March of 2023.
And where's that located?
I am in Issaquah, Washington. My studio is right in Issaquah, which is, 15 miles east of downtown Seattle. But, I go all over the Northwest and all over even beyond that. I've traveled. In fact, last year at this time, I was in Italy. I got to do a little photo shoot there. So, yeah. Cool. So camera will travel.
Camera will travel.
Yeah. So that's been my story. And I met you when I was wandering the hallways at the building.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I was looking for another photographer, and what I didn't know was this building is locked and you can't go into it. You have to make your appointments and they will let you into the building, right? Well, I didn't know that, and I'd read something on Facebook that showed me there was a photographer there who was doing some rather sexy pictures with older women, and I thought, well, maybe she'd be able to do this. So I went into the building, door was open. I had no idea. So I looked at the marquee and found the office and sat down because when I tried the door, it was locked. And about that time, I heard this lady uh, opening her door and she was talking to somebody. And I thought, wow, she sounds like a photographer. Next thing I know, I was sitting in her studio and we were talking.
Yeah, I think I was photographing one of the other. So I'm in the Issaquah Work Lofts, which is a newer building, and it's just, I don't know how many offices are here. So I think there's like 100 and something. But anyway, it's different businesses and small businesses. There's a lot of hairstylists. There's a couple photographers. There's all kinds of things. But yeah, so I've actually done photography for quite a few of the other tenants for their branding and website. And
Right.
yeah, I just
Well,
happened to be finishing with someone and found you in the hall.
well, she showed me her work, and she had her computer set up and this big screen computer, and I started looking at these pictures, and I thought, wow, this lady knows what she's doing because she had the number one thing that I was looking for. For an older person, it's really critical that you get the light right, because if you don't have it right, you're going to look like you're 102 years old. You can look your age or you can look better. So,
Yeah.
and I did notice that she had that. So it wasn't long before I made an appointment with Toni, went to her studio, and I had this lady. She told me about this lady that does hair and makeup while you're there. So I scheduled it before the photo shoot, and she did my hair and did my makeup. And yeah, for the first time in my life, I had false eyelashes. Never done it again.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to go when you're doing a professional portrait. Is it's not that you're going to look like yourself still, but it does. There are, you do want a little enhancement around the eye and lip that helps show up on camera a little differently than just day to day. So I don't think, because even if you look at those photos, I don't think you look overly made up. You just look great.
Yeah. Well, this last photo shoot, all I had was a little bit of eye makeup on and some blush and lipstick. That was, well, I think my lipstick worn off by then. So I learned that it didn't matter what kind of makeup that I wore because you have this way of taking command of light, whether it's in a room, which was the first time it was in your studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second time we went to Carnation and we shot it in this place called Miller's. They
Yeah.
do music there. And the third time we did it outside was it by the Tolt River in
Yeah, there's
Carnation?
a Toll Park there by the bridge, which
Yeah.
I think that's been my favorite one so far. I love working with when I get to repeat, especially with you, because I mean, the difference from the first time you're not sure how it's going to be, if they're going to come out good, or a lot of people feel like they have to know how to pose, and you don't. You just need to show up, and I
Yeah.
promise I will guide you through the rest of it, and you will never feel like you don't know what to do or awkward, because really I'm kind of talking you through the whole thing, like from tiny little micro, move this way, so you don't have to worry about knowing what to do or how to look, so
Exactly.
it's great. The next time I work with people are usually okay, they're not worried anymore, they've a little bit, and they trust me, so then we get a little more creative, and every time you can get a little more creative and just have a little more fun. Well, it's always fun, but there's just a relaxed feeling we can start with that in the beginning instead of having to get there. So,
Right. So you also, if I remember correctly, the first pictures that you took were pictures of your husband who had a band. He wasn't
well,
your
he wasn't
husband
my
then
husband. Yeah,
at the time.
he was this guy I worked with.
They must have really liked those pictures.
Yeah, well, I think he was trying to figure out how to get me to go out after work because I've been working at one of the newspapers and we had a late shift, So yeah, finally I was like, yeah, you want to photograph my band? And yeah,
Yeah,
so
I mean, before we answer that question, I have a couple. Can you read those? Michael
oh
McMath is on here. He follows bands all over the area. So, hi, Michael. I'm glad to see you here. And then there's Patrick O'Donnell, and he is his band is called Dublin Abbey, and he's been a frequent visit here. And he says, when you're photographing a client, how much of a balance is there between listening to what a client thinks they're seeking and directing them into what will work best for them in a music artist shoot?
yeah, that's a great question, Patrick. So a lot of times what I do is definitely have some kind of phone or Zoom consultation before the shoot. And often I'll ask people if they have references or something that you like, a style so that I can start to see what they're looking for. And I will always try to get something in the vein of that style that they're looking for. And then once I know we've got that, maybe see, depending on what shows up, just kind of work with, it's so great working with other artists. There's a creative kind of synergy that happens and, other artists kind of understand that. So once we get something in the style that they requested, then I'm going to look at, okay, I like to give ideas of this might also work and just give some options. So, but yeah, it's important because, so we do have a consultation beforehand. So I want to know what kind of music you have, what's your vision for the kind of photo you want. And then we just talk through that.
Right.
And then go
Well, when we first started, I had no clue. I didn't know what to do. This is all new to me. But
yeah.
I had already had my music out there going on the streams, and I needed some pictures to advertise it and so forth. So what I did was I went on to Pinterest of all the crazy things.
Oh, that's a great place to go.
You showed me some, and I looked up some, and I gave some kind of idea, kind of. And, she had me laying on the floor and sleeping on my guitar. It was about the blast. But this last one, which is the third time we've done this over a period of a couple of years, I think, it was much more of a challenge because she had me walking up this bridge and standing at this angle. And of course, my nerves were the nerves in my legs weren't used to that kind of workout.
Yeah.
And she kept saying, well, you love the pictures. You'll love the pictures. And so we did. It was great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think it was a little bit more of a walk than I thought it was going to be, but we had time.
Great.
And also
I loved them.
that it was during that smoky time, but
I loved them. They did.
We had time. Yeah. And the photos are fabulous. Sometimes we have to suffer a little bit for our art. So
the middle photo shoot that we had, that one I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, that was a totally different kind of thing. It was in the summertime. And it was windy outside, and she brought these flowers, so I could stand up next to a building, and she's going to take pictures of me with these flowers, and they were blowing every which way and falling down. And
oh my god,
we were trying to grab him in all this mess, and this guy who was working on the road came over and he helped us.
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, it was great.
I'm usually pretty good sometimes I'll bring an assistant if I think it's required. And then other times I'm usually pretty good about, finding people to help or getting, So.
Oh, he was such a hero that day. And she kept telling him, she didn't want him in the picture, but she wanted pictures of the flowers, right? And he had to hold them. And she kept saying, get down lower.
He ended up laying. I should have put that photo. I should have grabbed that. I have a photo of him lying on the ground. He was such a trooper. He was up for, I love that. He was great. He was like, whatever it takes, I can get down lower.
Yeah. It's just so cute. Yeah.
It was on his work break.
So I guess that the conclusion to all of this is that you never know. It's been 3 times, 2 times outside, one time inside our studios. And she asked me to bring a cowboy hat. I don't wear cowboy hats, but I brought one. I
Yeah.
got one on, got a cheap one, and put it on. And the picture was so good. It was went up on my website as my welcome page. Now we're changing that to this newest one that we
Yeah.
took outside. So the posing comes easy when you're with Toni. She has a real way of just knowing, and her camera's clicking all the time. I mean, I think she said per shoot at over 200 clicks on that camera.
Yeah, that's
Right?
the blessing and the curse of digital. You can just kind of keep shooting. I mean, when I started, a lot of times I was working with a Hasselblad, which the film is 12 frames. So sometimes if I knew like I was going to photograph you, I'd maybe have 2 or 3 rolls. And that would be it. So, or even if it was 35 millimeter, 36 frames, I would maybe shoot 1 to 2 rolls, which seemed like a lot. So there is a little bit of, I try to be a little more intentional, but sometimes just because you can shoot a lot, you do, but it makes it a little, makes it a lot to edit. But
Right. Well, I don't have a band, so I've never had a picture. I mean, I don't have a ready-made band. I can
yeah,
call people and do whatever if I want to perform. But I have the Joy Luxury Trio under Country Hot. So then there'd be 3 of us. And I haven't had to do that yet, but I think those pictures would be just as well. I mean, just as good, just as.
yeah, I love work. I don't think I put very many in my examples that I'm going to show, but I love working with bands, especially, that's a challenge when you start adding people. Anytime you start adding people, it becomes more challenging. And
Yeah.
but it's fun to try to create interesting. Everybody kind of knows some typical band shots, and you put the singer up front, and but you have to kind of be aware of, what the relationship and who's playing what. But it's a lot of fun to work with bands. In fact, every year there's a school of rock here in Issaquah for kids.
Yes. Yes.
Every year I photograph all the kids bands, literally probably about usually 10 bands. I don't know, over a short, but it's crazy because their bands there's so many kids in each one, like 7, 8, 9 kids. So I'm always trying to work with them, but it's a lot of fun. But I do love working with bands and creating something really interesting. And
Yeah, and the thing is, see, I use it for a lot of advertising, and there's a certain thing that I want when I put it out there. I mean, I want to, it's like a movie star. You want your best side. You want your, and with Tony, it's really easy to get a good picture. So,
well,
uh,
yeah, we talk about that a lot because especially now with the whole social media and this digital world everybody's living in all the time, you have different uses. Before, back in the day I was always shooting for like CD covers a lot of, so this square image a lot of times, whereas now, or promos for flyers,
yeah,
whereas now there's so many things. You got to think of that banner shot, and then Instagram post or whatever, that's something we talk about in the pre-consultation, is like, where are you going to be using these images? Because most musicians aren't even making CDs anymore. It's all in the,
yeah,
in the digital
yeah.
world. So we talk about that a lot. And then creating what's like a cover versus something, other types of images that could be used in different areas and for different reasons.
One of the things I liked about your pictures, Tony, was the fact the way you present them. I'm not exactly sure what you call it, but when she sends you your photos, she just doesn't just send the photos. She sends this package, and you log into it, and all your photos are there, and some are black and white, some are colored, but the interesting part is just the way you present them.
Yeah,
How do
it's
you do
through
that?
it's a software that I have. It's called Shootproof. And it's a really nice way to receive your gallery because you can look
Yes,
at it on a mobile or online, and you can download one at a time or all of them, and you can download them in a high resolution if you're going to be printing like a flyer or CD, or you can download for screen size, so it's smaller, won't take up as much room, on your whatever you're downloading onto. But it's always there. I don't, you can have your gallery there and just access it and share it with other people, and it's private too. You can have it password protective, or I usually set all my galleries to private anyway, so people, it's just yours alone. So it's a really great way. You don't have to worry about losing your photos. Yeah, and it's an easy way to sort through them and find the one you want. And
Yeah, there was another thing about that too. Some of these are going on a website. There are two different kinds of pictures, right? You have two different sizes,
yeah,
or how does that
when
work?
you go to
There's
download something, you'll choose either it'll say social size, which is for sharing like in social
on
media
social
or
media.
even really anything on a screen, and then or high resolution for printing. So anytime you're going to print a physical copy of something, it's a much larger file. So it's
Right.
all about DPI, and that's a whole area you don't need to know about. All you need to know is
Yeah, well, one of the things that I like the best is that I had a picture that my daughter saw when she was here, when she was visiting me. She lives in Oregon. And I was able to just go in there. Well, I had to talk Tony first how to do it. But
yeah.
you can go right into the picture and order it from
Oh, that's
there,
right. You could
right
actually,
online,
you can
right
even
in
print
your.
it. I forgot about that. I can add a cart on there where you can actually order prints right there as well. So it just makes it all very easy in one place. It's not going to require you to do a lot of extra work to find it, or to, when you're ready to use it, you can just have it there ready to go. And you can share it. You could even share your gallery with anyone you want as well. If you're working with a designer,
Right.
a
Yep.
website,
And I'm a web designer.
you just share theirs. And I think I just recently put all your shoots into one.
You did.
Yeah, so you
Yes.
can get in there and you can at any time get really easy access and easy to sort.
The only
If you
trouble
think
is,
about it, like where are the photos you took, 5 years ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago? How long would it take you to find those? We're
right,
always switching
exactly.
devices and computers so often. So
Another thing I like about it is when I lose them, because I forgot, and I haven't done this. I haven't done those. I haven't put them on my computer. So, but I know that she has them, so she can send them back to me if I need it. But
yeah,
yeah, it's really nice to be able to have that recall.
I think
And
that's, yeah, one of the biggest difference of working with, everybody's a photographer now, but one of the differences when you work with a professional, not only in regard to, posing and lighting and things like that, but also in just, I've had people contact me years later and like, oh my God, I can't find
yeah,
the photos. Yep, I can pull them up literally like within a few minutes, because I have a very, if you see my desk, I've got a stack of hard drives where everything lives, but it's really easy for me to find them, and everything's organized by date. So
you can't lose them. They're there.
yeah, I have never lost anything yet. So
Well, I have a few times. I've had a computer glitch wiped out a lot of my pictures, but
yeah,
yeah, I just contacted her and Tony and asked her, and they were right there.
yeah, I
So
can't. I've had that happen many times, many
yeah,
times.
no. And I was like, oh my God, no. I spent
Yeah,
this money. No, I can't. And I hadn't at that time, I wasn't sending them to my web designer. Courtney Prather does my web stuff. And she's also does other things and uses graphics, and so she manipulates the pictures in a lot of different ways, and thank God for her. But yeah, I that was something that was great for me to be able to send them to her and have all three of the shoots in there,
oh
so
great,
we can,
yeah,
yeah, we can use them how we want, even for, take them apart and do graphics on them and so forth for covers. So far we haven't done a whole lot of that, but we have done some.
yeah.
So I was going to ask you about during, I think, I was trying to remember the first photo shoot, but I think was it during COVID, or had
Yeah,
COVID
it
already?
must have been, because yeah, it definitely was. I moved in, I'd been in Gilman Village for I don't know, 8 or 9 years. A lot of people know Gilman Village here in Issaquah. And then I was moving into this new building, the Work Lofts, which is really just across the street, in February of 2020. So, and then the construction, everything got shut down. So while I was in the middle of moving, I ended up having to put my stuff in storage, which actually was worked out great. Didn't have to pay my lease until we, got to that phase 1.5. Remember those days when we had phases? Phase 1, phase 1.5 was when I could work with one client at a time inside. I was masked. They could be unmasked. So, and then that was July of 2020. And I met you in this building, so it would have been in here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, speaking of COVID, then I don't remember wearing a mask, but
well, you wouldn't. I'm sure I was.
okay.
Yeah, you didn't have to. My clients didn't have to, but I did. So
okay. So anyway, at that time what was it like to try to be a photographer?
It was. I mean, I have to say, I actually was pretty fortunate, and mostly because I didn't have to pay a lease for those, however 4 or 5 months.
Oh, yes.
I did start. A lot of people were needing headshots because a lot of people were changing their work or starting to work from home or being more in the digital world, and they needed shots. So I actually got really busy. I was been busy since July of 2020.
That's when I came there.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, and then a lot of people were starting businesses where they needed a lot of branding photography. So I was doing even that, whether it was in the studio or on location. I've been doing a lot of that. So, yeah.
So it didn't really have a bad effect. It sounds like you kept working, and actually, it wasn't a bad place to be, right?
No, it really wasn't. I mean, I know for so many people it was, and I'm thankful that it was not so. I didn't experience it that way. In fact, yeah. So there were still things to work around.
Right.
But
did you ever get sick from a client or anything?
Pardon?
Did you ever get sick from a client?
No, I didn't. I did not. I mean, even like there's a Gilman Village. There's a preschool there, and so every year I have photographed those kids. And so the one year we didn't do it, but the second year, I guess it was 2021, we actually. Usually they would come to my studio because it was in Gilman Village, but instead I went and set up an outdoor, and it was so cute because they hadn't had them for a year, and the parents were really happy to. But again, I would always wear a mask, and it's hard. The hardest thing for me wearing a mask was that usually I guide my client with my own expression. So
yeah,
I'll like show them the kind of smile, or you can kind of. That was the hardest thing was, getting, I can't imagine being my client looking at me with a mask, me trying to show them how to express. So I've been thankful that I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. I think we're all thankful of that.
We even tried at once getting these clear it did not work.
No.
It looked more goofy than.
No. I have seen some websites. I believe it was your son's website. So when I was putting my website together and had these pictures that I got taken by you, I was looking at them and trying to figure out, well, what do I want my website to look like? Mm-hmm. And you sent me the website, I believe, of your son. Is this the same son that does write songs for people?
Yeah, I have one of my sons is a musician. Well, actually, I have identical twin boys. They had a band all through high school, and but one of them has really stayed in it, and he's a songwriter, and he pretty much plays everything. So he goes by the name Moonly, and so he writes songs, and he does create his own music as well. But currently he's been there's a website called Songfinch that people can hire to get a personalized song made. So he works with that, and among other things, he does some, so along with doing his own music as well.
I thought that was so cool. If you want a song for yourself, you know, well,
Mhm.
maybe for an anniversary or a birthday or
Yeah,
whatever, I
yeah.
thought that was just so cool that he did that. And
It's
I
pretty
just thought,
neat. It always amazes me. Yeah, that the ability to get these, people will say they have to have certain phrases and, you know, events put into a song and then be able to do it in an artistic way that actually sounds really cool. It's pretty neat.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just
Songwriters
amazing.
blow me away, by the way. Any songwriters out there, I am just like in awe. I just think it's an amazing talent, and it's the coolest. I know when I heard your first song that you played for me, I think it was Country Hot or something.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I just think it's the neatest skill to have. I mean, that's my dream. If I could have, alter ego that did a dream thing, it'd be, but I'm
Well,
not inclined. I'm not inclined. In fact, I don't even like to write anything. That's why I just like to take pictures.
I can tell you, Tony, I have no clue what I'm doing. I
Well, you do it pretty well.
honestly,
You
you
make
know,
it look like you do. Sounds like you.
well, thank you.
You're
Like
being
I said,
humble. You're being
half the
humble.
time I don't know what I'm doing. So I think what your son does has to be just that is the epitome of cool.
Yeah, not only that, he does it like within 4 hours from start to
Oh
finish.
my
And not
gosh,
only writes it, but records it and
presents it.
and
Yeah.
gets it finished, plays everything on it. Yeah. It's like, wow.
Wow. That's amazing. Just
Yeah.
amazing.
It's a good.
So during this time that you started and found that photography was something that you wanted to continue with, was there, I mean, I don't know much about photography. I don't know much about anything besides music in a lot of ways, but
That's how I
uh,
feel about.
is there anything that, any one particular thing that inspired you other than you knew that this, after doing it, this was something you wanted to do or?
Well, I think again, I think for me, when I look back now, when I was felt really inspired to take a portrait of someone, which would have been called an environmental portrait at that time, like a portrait of somebody just being who they are, just kind of that essence, not like a hey, but really more of them kind of engaged in what they're doing and in their own essence kind of thing. That's what kept driving me to what I was trying to capture, whether I was taking one of my roommates out or in college, or I'd see somebody and I'd just be like, oh, can I photograph you, that. So I was always inspired by that. So but then you do it as a job to try to make money, and it shifts a little bit because you're not just following a muse, you're working for somebody else to bring their vision to life. And especially early in my career, when I worked for a commercial studio, it was very much, this was in the 90s, and you had an art director, and so you were really more of a technician, and then of course I would always try to come up, you have, I think as the photographer, even when the art director brings in ideas, you always try to like take it to the next place, so
Right.
maybe try to give them something they didn't expect that they could, get excited about as well. So it's a creative collaboration. So the way I work now, it's a little, I'm kind of a one person show here. So it's a little different. I do have some commercial clients and product clients, and luckily I'm lucky that they give me a lot of leeway, to just to
Be creative.
yeah, and to kind of bring ideas. And I have a couple clients that just they don't even show up anymore. They're just like, here's what we need, we're sending the product over, get some models, and get it done. I'm like, great. Well, which is nice, but it is
Challenging.
nice. Like, again, I will just repeat, I love working with musicians or any type of artist, because there is that sensibility of there's a creative thing that happens. I think the hardest shoots are when people come in with a very specific idea, and they're usually the least successful shoots, because something you see somewhere else might not work for your situation.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we all want to, it's best to like find the thing that works for you. or when I say you, that's a very, big, like your band, whatever. Um, so it's a good place to start, but it's really, I think any photographer, I mean, it's like you'd probably feel the same way if someone came in and said, "Hey, play your guitar just like this," It feels very tight and constricted. It feels better when you can just kind of
Yeah.
leave room. One of my mentors always, she has a great phrase where she says, we're going to let freedom lead the way today. Like you can go out and start a shoot and then like just be free to allowing what happens and respond. I mean, that's all we want to do as artists, right? Is to
Right.
make a mark and then respond versus have it all prearranged.
I think you have, the reason I keep coming back, will keep coming back for as long as, um, is that there's something that you do, and it's got to be years of experience and that creative eye that you have to know just when to get that picture. Not obviously you do it more than one time and then pick the best of the few that you take, but you seem to know just exactly when to click that camera.
Cool. Yeah,
and,
there's a
and
famous,
it
yeah,
shows.
it's called Decisive Moment. That's a famous photographer, Henri Cartier-Bresson. He, from back, I want to say 40s or French photographer, but he did street photography, and he was one of the photographers I studied early on and was really inspired by. But it's called the decisive moment. It's like that moment when you click. But for me, I'm directing, and it's almost like when I'm directing somebody's pose or face or movement, it's like I see it click in. Like that that work to me. All of a sudden, I'll be like, oh, I saw it, and then what happens is if I see it and then you move, then because I already know it exists. I'm like, I'm going to try to get you back to it. And you're like, I can't do it. I'm like, yeah, you can, because I saw you do it once.
Yes,
You've heard me say that, right?
right.
So,
Well,
yeah, but yeah, that decisive moment of when to click the shutter.
and a
Yeah,
light.
I think at this point, it's just years of, like anything, the more you do it. I like that tagline on your Facebook page for matured musicians. What it says, musicians who have spent, what does it say, have spent a lot of years.
Yeah. The music has matured. Basically, it's just basically musicians who have reached a certain amount of maturity with their instrument and with their
Yeah,
music. And
yeah,
it can happen at any time. I mean, I've had
right.
people in their 20s on, I've had people a lot older.
Yes, yeah,
And it's just, you don't know when it's going to happen, but when it
right.
happens, it's there. I mean, it's
Yes,
like,
it's an amazing, amazing thing. It's almost like I do mentor a couple of young photographers, and some of the things, it's like you just have to just go take more photos. I can't, you hit a certain area where I can't really teach you the next thing until you just do it more.
you gotta
Because you have
feel
to
it.
have that feeling of, you just learn so much by just doing it.
Right.
Very, very true.
So moving a little away from that, have you ever regretted what you do?
No, no. I mean, there have been times when I'm like, oh my god, I just wish I had a 9 to 5 job where somebody was paying me. I mean, I think that's a self-employed thing more than regret it. And then there's definitely times when you turn a passion into a business, there are days when you forget what it feels like to feel that passion about it. So but I would never say regret, because then I feel so lucky that I've been able to make a business out of these, just taking a lot of, I've definitely, people say, oh, you work for yourself, but I've worked, I mean, working for myself, this is the hardest boss I ever worked for. It's like, the hours are way
Most
long.
critical.
Yes, and it just never, I think that the most, one of the best resources I've found is talking with other solopreneurs or other photographers, other creatives, because we are so self-critical. There could be a day where I'm feeling critical, and I could look at a shoot I just did and be like, "Ugh, this is horrible. Nothing about this good." And then I come back to it, a couple of days later, another week, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is actually pretty good." Or, I've gotten times like that where I have a good friend that's also a photographer. Can you just look at this for me? Because I'm feeling like I can't see anything, And I think all creatives do that from what I'm, from talking to other, but it's really helpful to talk to other people that understand that and can be like, yeah, you're good, keep going. But no, I wouldn't say I regret it because I just remind myself on the days if I feel a little burned out or I tend to overschedule myself. I don't like to say no to things. I'm doing a little bit better about that. I just remind myself that how much, that I ultimately at the end of the day, I do have freedom to, make some choices. So,
Right.
but yeah, I'm definitely getting to a point now where I'm like, well, it's too late to do anything else, which isn't, necessarily true either, but to get really
So
good.
we have, you get it. I film everything that I do when I play, and then I go back, and when I'm doing it, I'm very critical. I go, oh gosh, what did I do?
Oh,
when I get off the stage, but then I'll look at it when I get home, and then I'll cringe. A lot of times I'll cringe and say, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But then I go back the next day and listen to it again. And that's when I'm, like rested and it's gone. And I can really look at it and see the positives.
right. I know. I've kind of hit a place where I'm learning not to get too critical, but also not to get cocky. I've noticed that anytime I think like, oh, this is so good, I've got this. So I go back later and look like, oh my God, this is all crap. Nothing can focus. It's like, I've kind of had to, I don't go there very often, but I have found that
The
when
life of the artist.
it's like.
Now I know that you have some pictures that you've taken that
Yeah, I threw together when we realized I could show you a few things. I just threw together, grabbed some musicians. So this was from your latest shoot. Hopefully I don't know, it looks low res on my screen. Hopefully you can see it okay. But you can get the overall gist. This was one of those smoky days. But this would be a typical outdoor shoot. And then
that first picture that you had on there, that is now the main picture on my website. Right now it just has my name on it, but she's working to get the lettering on it.
I think it's just gorgeous. I love it.
It's a cool picture.
So usually on a shoot like that, especially when I know it's for a song or, I think what was the name of that song you were talking about?
You mean Country Hot?
No, for this last shoot.
I'm thinking about leaving.
Yeah. So I usually in my mind, I'll try to do an image that kind of illustrates that kind of thing because then you could use it someplace else in the
Right.
And this is what I would call more of a really straightforward headshot.
Right.
But clearly you're a musician. So I think these images I'm pulling.
Is that your son? Is
no,
that
no. This was another musician that came into the studio. So these are studio shots.
I like that. That is really neat.
I mean, just to get some personality. And this was from your first shoot, which you can see is quite
with the cowboy hat. Nobody knows this, but when I went in the studio, silly me, I wasn't thinking about color. I wasn't thinking about shadow. I wasn't thinking about lighting because I didn't know what to expect. It was the first time.
Yeah.
And that shirt actually has black or navy blue stars all over it.
Right. I think I edited them out. The white
You
shirt
did?
had it. And even I know that's like next time I was like, ooh, we need a dark shirt. And I think, we talked a little bit before, but until you do it, sometimes it's hard to know. This is another local musician, Stephen Fletcher. He plays in the Dog Tones, and then also he does his own songwriting. I've been photographing him for since the 90s.
The Dog Tones, I've heard of that.
Yeah, they're a 3-piece cover band. They play at a lot of, but he's also a songwriter when he does his own songs. So
that's
kind of, again, getting that, trying to get expression and it doesn't, everything does not have to be with an instrument, obviously.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
She looks really good in black and white.
Yeah, there's to me, I was a black and white photographer for a lot of the beginning of my career, and so I a lot of times I'm seeing in black and white, even though, it's one of the great things with digital, you can change it up. But I love a strong black. Oh, and then I just wanted to show this because you can get fun. We can create a lot of expressions. We can do
Yeah.
something, there's just so many ways we can go with this.
Oh,
A younger musician, which is,
how did you get your hair flying? Like, was that a fan?
oh yeah, I've got a fan in here.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I think I remember that.
Your hair was kind of short on your
Right.
first shoot, so we didn't use it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the fan. Yeah.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah. And then this
Oh,
was just, more of a little more feeling kind of thing, but outdoor. I like the,
is that a horse trailer or a camper or something?
actually a train. One of the up in Snoqualmie, you can kind of get onto the trains are there in old Snoqualmie.
Oh, a train, that one. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just kind of the door of a train. This one I just put in here. I was just like, I don't know, just thinking of different, just giving the idea that it doesn't have to be, with their instruments. It could be like, just outdoors. And this is just another.
Right.
I like to shoot a lot at,
I would like to.
late in the day.
This one right here, I would have liked to have seen that if it had been blowing up. I like to see the look on her face. She's got,
Oh yeah.
that is quite the look there.
Yeah, I do have some. I had some closer, and this was just, it doesn't always, your vision can just be what it is. It doesn't have to all be straightforward. And
Right.
oh, this was
Oh,
one.
that's your son.
Yeah, that's my son. So we literally, I wish I had a picture of the background of this because I actually created this small, with plastic tubing and tarp. We created like a little pool in the backyard. Literally, it was like a, 6 inches, and filled it with water. And so he could, so there's a lot of creative things we can do, just, I think that was it. So yeah, that's my Pinto Portrait is my website. And, you'd see there's a lot more work there. If you're interested.
Yes. So it's www.pintoportraits.com.
Pinto Portrait, no S. Pinto Portrait. Yeah. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but I got to be honest, I have not been on the socials. I haven't been updating it just because I've been kind of busy. So
Yeah, if I remember correctly, you were publishing I don't know if it was monthly or weekly or whatever. You had a little update about who you were doing and a little bit about.
No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
I haven't seen that for a while. I kept looking for it and I thought,
I know.
maybe I just
That's been
don't
my
know.
week. That's my week spot. I used to have someone that helped me with it, but yeah.
Oh, was
And I
every
don't like
week?
to write. Writing is such a challenge for me, even though I don't put a lot of words in there. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how difficult that can be. With doing these interviews, I've got a lot of background work that has to be done to get these interviews right. And I haven't had time to do my blog. I'm like so behind. I don't know.
I mean, I have ideas constantly, but yeah, the execution of them, it takes me, some people can do it really quickly. That's one thing that takes me a long time, whereas I can edit, 100 photos like that. But to actually write a paragraph will take me half a day. So,
I hear you. I get that.
Anyone out there who wants to help me with that?
Well, do you still have, you were looking for a roommate on your studio, another photographer, was it?
I was thinking about sharing my studio space here because, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that. If I did, I just would have to find, one other person that might want to share the space because I'm not shooting all, I don't need to be sitting here editing. I could do that at home or, because it's a nice big space that would be available.
Yeah. So if anybody out there is looking for in that area, just contact Toni Pinto.
Bringing that up. I'm surprised you remembered that.
All right. I don't forget.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
So going forward in the future, if you were looking at a 1 to 5 year plan, what do you have coming up, or what thoughts do you have about, other than getting somebody in the studio with you, what do you see yourself doing for the next 1 to 5 years? What direction are you pointing in?
I think it's, more of the same, but I am definitely in the portrait world. I'm what's called a generalist. If you look at my website, you'll see I do, you know, the branding. Plus, I do, for historically, I've done a lot of families and high school seniors, but ideally, I really love being in the professional portrait and branding lane. So I've had the opportunity to travel a little bit to do some of that. So I would like to continue doing more of that.
What is that exactly? What are you saying that?
Branding, which is, what I
Branding.
do, where, yeah. So whether it's, like basically what we do with you, or sometimes I work with people that need a whole website, populated and things like that. So
Right. Ah, okay. So it's your clients' branding that you're talking about and creating photos for their whatever it is that.
yeah, for all their marketing needs. So, and I really love doing personal portraits where, if you think about, a life, you probably, we all have those, selfies or just that, but something a little more intimate that's just a real personal portrait for somebody, and maybe a collection of photographs where it's just more about kind of capturing the essence of who they are and not so much just a here's me smiling at the camera. And in fact, on my website, there's a section called Empowered Portraits. It's a little more personal images like that. So I love doing that because if you just think about, this is something we're going to be leaving behind, and what's someone after you're going to look, whether it's your children, grandchildren, or friends or acquaintances, or just people looking back on your life and seeing who you are. I've always was fascinated by finding like my family's old
Yeah.
ancestors, old black and white photos that my dad or my mom had of
Right.
their people that I've never even met, but I was just like fascinated by these old photos of looking at who is this person, and so I do love, I think it's something, you should all think about, what is that image of yourself you're going to leave behind?
Right. Right. That's an interesting concept. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I wish I had more pictures of my grandmother. She was very, there's a lot of, she used to like rip herself out of photos when I think any photos of her when she was over maybe 50, I don't know. So yeah, I don't have any pictures of the way I remember her.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking as you were talking, um, if I had time and money, I would like to do a picture shoot like that with your son's song or songs. I mean, if you match the two of them and you pass that on to future generations, that's
Oh,
a tell too. I mean, not just the
yeah,
picture, but the song
right.
about
Tell,
whatever
yeah,
topic. Yeah, I think
yeah.
it's kind of interesting.
That
I
is
just thought,
Yeah,
just
I
a
mean, we're
thought.
all leaving stories behind, right? So if
Yes,
you leave it visually or written or
right.
song,
And we
it's
can't always all afford to write a book and get it published.
well, we can all write them. I don't know if we can publish them. Yeah. So,
So I think that's kind of bringing us up to kind of a
wow,
wrap up
that was
here.
like, yeah, I was worried I was going to take, okay, that was quick. That went quick.
So yeah, we're getting there. We've gone through almost 55 minutes. Can
Right.
you believe that it's gone that fast?
No.
No. Yeah. Well, so I really do appreciate having you here, Toni. And
No,
I
I
got the
appreciate all it's great to have that you've had the experience a few times so you can talk to that.
right.
Great.
Um, Somebody just wrote, good interview on an interesting topic. Thanks. So somebody appreciated this. So
Yeah.
I do want to encourage you, if you ever get that newsletter up and running again, to put that on Mature Musicians, to put information that comes that you like, something that you might be working on that you think people would be interested about you or your studio or what you're doing, projects.
And I
Um,
welcome people if they have any questions. I'm happy to
Right.
Any questions about anything in photography?
Well, one of the things that I know that photographers don't come cheap, but um, I I know that your prices and so forth are they published on your website? Do they have to talk to you first or yeah?
Yeah, I try to be super reasonable. I remember
Yes.
you like had to like save up and it was like, and you did, and I think you had the experience of seeing the value of, you know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you spend, maybe you find someone who do it half for what I do it, but if you don't like the photos and you don't use them, it's not worth it. So
No, it's
yeah.
definitely not. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to do in the future, obviously not this year, I have to save up. But one of the things I like to do is get some winter pictures with snow.
Ooh, yeah.
And so I guess that brings me to a question. Then, with me, I know that we've done 2 photo shoots out of your studio. Um, is there an added cost, or is there something that can you go anywhere, anytime, or is something you
It's
pay
just
for?
something we kind of talk about. It kind of depends on the situation to how
Mhm.
far and stuff. But I'm always excited to go different places. So yeah.
So I guess the other question is, knowing how these bands work, uh, do you also go to their gig and take photos
I
doing that
used to
kind of
do
thing?
that quite a bit. I haven't really done that, because a lot of times it just, it's not like a hard no, but it kind of, again, that's something like that depends on the situation. Especially depends on the gig, because sometimes if the light's really bad,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, and they
at
usually
the end
are.
of the day, photography is about light. I always used to
Yes.
tell my students, you're not photographing a person, place, or thing. You're photographing the light on a person, place, or thing. And yeah, you can enhance it with, but usually at gigs, a lot of times stage lighting can be great and work out well. So it just kind of,
Depends.
and if anybody has a question like that, it's best just to contact me, shoot me an email or a call, and happy to. Because I don't like to be a hard yes or hard no on anything. Just the situation depends.
Absolutely. So with that, I guess, Tony, it's time to say goodbye. And I truly
Thank you
enjoyed our
so much for inviting me to do this. I know.
and
Yeah.
anybody out there who's been listening to this, please do tell people. All musicians at some point look for a photographer, if not musicians, families too.
Yeah.
And it's awful hard. When I started, I was like, where do I look? Where do I go? I mean, I had no clue how to go about this. So that's one of the reasons I presented this today.
Yeah. I
And I
appreciate
hope
that.
that all goes well with you in the future, Tony. I know we're going to be together in the future.
Yes, I'm
Big
sure
photo
we
shoot.
will.
And I want to thank everybody out there for listening. And I hope all of you, including you, Tony, have a wonderful Thanksgiving Day.
Thank you. You too. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right. So take care, everybody. Goodbye, Tony. Thank you again.
Bye. Thank you.
So that wraps it up for today. Next week, I have Kelly Van Camp. He is a musician, and he will be with me on the Monday after Thanksgiving. So do tune in. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. And I do tell your friends. Do tell your friends about Toni if you're interested, and she will work with you. And I was really thankful to have her today. So goodbye, everybody. And now hopefully I can shut this thing off without any drama. Take care. Happy Thanksgiving.